Good evening to you and welcome to this program of Walter Rodney Groundings. I'm your host, Dion Abrams, and on the program with me this evening is Mr. Jeremy Norman Stein, who has been here before. He's the Industrial Relations Officer at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, and he's also an active member of the Guyana Public Service Union. And today we'll be talking about issues relating to the union and the recent elections and so on. Welcome to Walter Rodney Groundings, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Dion, and thanks for having me here this afternoon.
Before we talk about the Public Service Union, I just want to let the public out there know, the people who have been going to the Pan African Movement's Day of the African Child concert, and that the concert will be held this year again at Queen's College, the auditorium of Queen's College, on the 18th of June, beginning at 4 o'clock. The MC will be Vasil Williams, and of course, those who would have been going to that concert know that you are usually in for a great treat, and you need not expect any less this time around. So that concert will be held on the 18th of June at the Queen's College Auditorium. The President's College Steel Band and many of the other artists, Anu Abrams, and a lot of other uh, artists of note will be on the program. So you can begin to set your minds to be there at 4 o'clock on the 18th of June at Queen's College Auditorium for the Day of the African Child concert promoted by the Pan African Movement Guyana branch. If you want to have tickets for that, then you can get in touch with Sister Joycelyn Long and you will be able to secure your tickets early. Um, well, Jermaine, the PSU has been under some kind of, what do we call it? There is some kind of fracture in the union between what we call Team Gaspar and Team Yard. The last time we talked here, you were talking about the elections and your concerns about the way the elections were going. What are the new developments in relation to the elections? The adult results would have been not announced, but a winner was declared. And but there are certain developments. What are the current issues concerning the GPSU, the membership, and the current, well, we can say de facto executive?
Well, let me say that first of all, what took place defies logics,
Okay.
and this clearly makes no sense that you have an election and the participants who are participating in those elections, as well the presidential candidate, wrote the union on behalf of his branch number 72, which is the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, to say, look, we would like to have a copy of the voters list. Um, the election officer said that he don't have a voters list.
The
And
election officer would have been whom?
the Horman D'Souza.
Okay.
So Mr. Horman D'Souza said he cannot give this because it is not a public document. No, it is impossible for you to run an elections and not have a voters list. People must know um, the constituents in terms of the relevant departments, how many persons are eligible to vote, and so on, which is a legitimate document in any elections. So he said that he cannot make it available. Then there was the elections. But before the elections, from the onset, we made it very clear that we had no faith in the electoral process because Horman D'Souza is a former first vice president of the union not too long ago. This has always been a very close friend to Patrick Yard. This is a gentleman who Patrick Yard have supported in several areas, including the credit union, and the record is there to show. So while it is that I cannot getting or deliberate on the issues of the relationship between the two of them, even at the Guyana Public Service Credit Union, by virtue of the fact that I'm a director there. What I can talk about is the fact that there's a close relationship between these two persons. So we made it very clear from the onset that we have no faith in it, in the process. And then before the elections, there was a press conference by which the first Vice President Mortimer Lyvan went on national television saying that 5 persons are contesting for presidency. And at this stage, the election officer did not make any public announcement on the elections, how many persons are running for the elections or so on. Nobody know that. But then the first vice president could have gone on national television to say that this is it. And when the list actually came out to go to all of the agencies, he was actually right. So how did he get this information? Then the next thing is that you had the Deputy General Secretary, which is an elected position. So the Deputy General Secretary, it is someone who tries, hoping to get elected. Acting as the General Secretary and signing off documents and notices as the General Secretary, going out to the various agencies about election.
But do you have a General Secretary?
No.
So you don't have the General
No,
Secretary?
you don't have a General Secretary. And this is something that has been orchestrated by Yar, because he recognizes that for him to get total control of the Guyana Public Service Union, it is in his best interest not to have a General Secretary. So what he did is appoint this guy Kempton Alexander to act as the General Secretary. But then the union rules is clear that the General Secretary should be working in conjunction with the election officer. They should be working hand in hand. Whatever the election officer needs, he go to the General Secretary.
So how is the General Secretary appointed to the position?
The General Secretary is appointed by the Executive Council.
Okay.
And therefore, it means that the General Secretary is a member of staff. So the General Secretary sits on the Executive Council, but he do not have a vote.
Okay.
He's an ex officio officer.
He's an administrator, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
While the Deputy General Secretary is someone who is vying for the position and hoping to get elected. So you cannot have a Deputy General Secretary who is part and parcel of the election and then still acting in a position where you're supposed to have this position, and in this position where you're acting, you're basically supposed to have no affiliation to either sides. So you can't be running for the election and at the same time you're still holding a position where you're not supposed to be biased. But that was the case, right? And there are several issues that we could point out, and we have been pointing them out in terms of you have over 60 to 70% of the person who sits on the Executive Council have long retired out of the public service. They do not have any base on the public service, but then these are the persons who wants to make decision about negotiation and about the welfare of public servants and all of that. When there's no constituents, they're basically just speaking by virtue of their own opinion, right? So those are some of the issues that we made it very clear that we were not happy going into the election with, but we recognize that while it is that the elections, we know it would have been rigged. We had to go into the election because we did not want Patrick Yard to get a free pass. And that is why even before the election, we had a case, and we still have a case at the court, in which the court matter was called So when the matter was called before the court, um, we, of course, we served him and so on. And the grounds and the merits of that case is where we have recognized that he, Patrick Yard, is in violation of the rules of the union, where the rule says that every year the union shall be audited, which means shall in law is mandatory. And it should be audited by the 1st of May every year. For the past 14 years, the union have not been audited. And while the union have not been audited, there is this charade that Patrick Yard put on to say that the union is a democratic organization.
Well, if it's democratic, then part of the whole idea of democracy is transparency.
Exactly. As a matter of
So
fact,
how do the two go together? The fact that there is no audit, and then there is this democracy that we're talking about.
well, that's a very good question, because the same rules,
Mhm.
say Rule 13, says that not only that there should be an audit, but the audit shall be done and be placed in a conspicuous place within the union. It means that everyone coming to the union should see this audit, that it is there. And like I said, the word shall is used, which makes it mandatory. And that have not been done for the past 14 years, but what Patrick Yard has done is sought to blame the Auditor General. To even say that the Auditor General had a staffing problem, which is totally not accurate. And many persons who've been following this entire issue would see that the Auditor General was disgusted. So he himself spoke to the press and said that he do not know what Patrick Yard is talking about, and the representation that his lawyer made in the court to have the injunction discharged is a fallacy. Because how can you say that I had a staffing problem when in fact that over the past 14 years you never submitted your accounts to be audited? The last audit was 2003 to 2004 that the union had, and still, that, based on my information, the Auditor General still have not signed off that audit as yet, because it was done, and then, and of course, when this audit is finished, then the treasurer would sign it off. But since the union have no treasurer, then Patrick Yard would have to sign it off.
So you don't have a general secretary in the union, you don't have a treasurer. Is it that these positions, these critical positions, are not filled in the union?
Look, these key positions are not filled in the union because Patrick Yard have orchestrated and devised a way where he could have total control of the Ghana Public Service Union. As a matter of fact,
So how does the spending and so on, if there is no treasurer to account for spending, to prepare a treasurer's report at your annual, when you have an annual general conference?
we have a biannual
Biannual,
delegates.
okay.
So the biannual delegates conference
Right.
is where those documents that you're inquiring about,
Mhm.
it is supposed to be laid before the members.
So if there is no treasurer, how is it that these documents are prepared?
Well, that's a beautiful question. Like I said, it's about control. And what has been happening is that since there is no treasurer, since the accounting of monies and union dues for public servants that goes to the union, and Patrick Yard knows that he can't account for that, what he has done is to just treat the finances of the union, just hold it in abeyance, because he recognized that he cannot send these things to the Auditor General, because the Auditor General will ask those questions, as well as there are several issues, like for example, Patrick Yard has taken out a Visa card for the union. The only person that have control for that Visa card is Patrick Yard, and he spends He uses it to his whims and fantasies.
So, what evidence is there that this card exists?
Anybody, once you're a member, can go to the Republic Bank to inquire about it. As a matter of fact, any member, according to the rules, supposed to be able to go to the Guyana Public Service Union to say, I would like to see the accounts. And the accounts should be made available to any member. That is right there in the rules. That is why when the audit is done, it is supposed to be put up in a conspicuous manner so that people could look at it and they could see, well, okay, this is what is happening. But that and several other things have not been happening. Patrick Yard continued to abuse the Guyana Public Service Union in more ways than one. You've got a major conflict of interest position right now at the union where you have, and believe me, Patrick Yard is I don't think they got anybody who could actually, well, when it comes to conflict of interest, is a more blatant monster than Patrick Yard. And I could point to several. One of the forces, what is happening at the union right now, where you got the members of staff of the union pays union dues. So if you're a member of staff, automatically, whether you like it or not, you have to pay union dues. And you pay union dues to your employer. So how can I pay you union dues? And then if I have a problem, then I have to come to you to defend me against you as my employer? It makes absolutely no sense. But as far as Patrick Yard is concerned, once it puts an extra dollars in the coffers of the union, and he could have it to his disposal, and he spends as his like, where there's no checks
I'm
and
trying to
balance.
I'm trying to understand what you're saying. You have been actively involved in the union.
Yes.
We walked from UG. We participated in the strike with UG. You walked
Yes.
from UG to Georgetown,
Yes.
Brick Dam, and all of that.
Yes.
You were actively involved in the GGMC strike, and
Yes.
that's when I saw you coming to prominence
Yes.
in the union.
Yes.
So and in 2015, I think, when we had the Labor Day celebration at
Yes.
the
I made a speech
Parliament
there.
building
Yeah.
there, we left and then we went to the GPSU for a little get together afterwards and all of that. So I got the impression that you were part of the
Well, yes.
yard.
It is a very accurate observation.
Mhm.
And let me say this. While it is that I've worked in the union, while it is that I've been on the forefronts and I've fought for public service, and I still do, although I'm in a managerial position, I still do. One thing I've always had is an independent mind.
Okay.
And once you have an independent mind, it does not augur well with Patrick Yard. And that has been the problem with myself and Patrick Yard. I have served on the executive council of the Guyana Public Service Union. When Patrick Yard tried to raise the union dues from $1,000 to $1,200, the lone voice, the only person who said I'm against it, was Jermaine Hormanstein. So while it is that I have been there, I have made decisions based on principle, because there are things that I recognize that it is not fair. And by taking those principal positions, that is what has caused the division between us. Because Patrick Yard believes that whatever you do, or whatever he says rather, you're supposed to just follow and follow blindly. But I do not believe in that principle. As a matter of fact, he once said that when I had to let him know at an executive council meeting that this is a democratic organization, and he said to me right there in front of all of those members that I must first understand that democracy has its limitations, which means that yes, there's democracy, but democracy is obviously circumstantial as it relates to him, because he will set the yardstick to determine when there's democracy and when there's not democracy. And That's dangerous in any organization.
So what about the other people who make up the executive of the union? You said many of them are retired and all of these things. Why is it that they can't take an independent position? You get the sense that a lot of what is happening is not favorable to the membership of the union. Why is it that all these people who are there are still just towing the line and not, rocking the boat as you are?
Well, let me say that for many of those persons, it is an economic situation.
Okay.
And what Yard has done is use that economic situation to his benefit. Because lots of those persons are retired of the public servants, out of the public service. They're now working. So you find that some of them only means of income is the little small piece that they collect from the union. So they recognize that it is in their best interest to not offend Patrick. So they would normally do his biddings so that they could continue to get a monthly stipend. And that has been the reality. What he's been doing is using people's economic situation against them.
This executive that we're talking about, you talk about elections, you talk about the appointment of the Assistant General Secretary, you're supposed to have a treasurer, you're supposed to have a General Secretary. The executive that we talk about, is this executive a body that comes out of the elections?
Yes, the executive body are the person who has been elected. But then you have to have a biannual delegates conference to install those persons. So while they're elected, they cannot serve right away. They have to be installed by the biannual delegates conference, which is the highest forum of the union. Now, for you to have that, you're supposed to have 50% of the branch represented there. But then, what Patrick Yard has done is create a situation where you have almost 90 to 95% of those branches are dormant. So it means that if you do not have an active branch, the branch do not make a decision on behalf of themselves to determine who will go to represent the views of the persons within that department. So what will happen then is that because there is no active branch, then Patrick Yard and his executive picks and handpick who they want to carry to the biannual delegates conference to make whatever decisions he wants.
But still, there is an election, all right? Or there are elections for office bearers. The office bearers are sworn in at the biannual delegates conference.
Yes.
The people who are there, or the people who are put forward during the elections, normally would be from the different branches of the union. All right? You are saying that there are retired people there who really are not active members of the union, which means that they are not part of the delegates conference. I'm still trying to get how it is that they are still on the executive when after the elections all of those people who are elected should be active members of the public service who would have been put forward by their branches for elections to the executive. Well, that is not clear to me.
Okay. Let me say, what Patrick Yard has done, the rule book of the union, he has amended during his tenure over the past 30 years about 3 times. And in his last amendment, what he did is made an amendment to who a member is. So the amendment now says that a member, a bona fide member, should not, doesn't necessarily mean that person is a public servant, but the person should have been a public servant. And once the person has retired out of the public service, they can continue to pay their dues. And that person
to what benefit?
Well, that person could enjoy every benefit like any other um, member. In the previous, before the amendment, what you had is a situation where when you retire out of the public service, you can continue your membership, but you'd be considered as an associate member. So you will not have all of those rights as a full member, as somebody who's in the public service. But what you have currently is that amendment of that rules which gives Patrick Yard and all of these cronies an opportunity to continue to be a part of the public service, to be a part of the executive.
I'm trying to follow what is happening in the union, because you were saying that Patrick Yard amended these rules.
Yes.
Can the rules be amended by Patrick Yard?
Well, yes. Let me tell you how was the process. As part of the procedure, he will have whatever amendments that he wants to make, and then it goes to the biannual delegates conference. But as I said before, these branches are dormant, so he handpicks who he wants to go to these conferences. So whenever he takes it to this so-called biannual delegates conference, then he would pitch whatever proposal that he wants for them, and they make whatever decision that he wants. So once that it's passed at the biannual delegates conference, as whether it go in the form of a resolution,
Okay.
right, and that resolution is passed, then it is now taken to the deeds registry, where it is registered, and the amendment then takes effect, right? So it has to go to the deeds registry, as well as the trade union of Federation of Trade Unions, and the amendments is made, and then it becomes the new rule. So what he has done is manipulate the process throughout the past 25 years. As a matter of fact, before Patrick Yard, when he recognized that he was approaching 55, what he did is amend it to take it to, I think it was 60 or 65, something like that. Then he made a second amendment now to open it. So what he's doing is creating an atmosphere where he can die in office, which it seems to be the plan. And that is and those are some of the issues that I have a problem with. That is what creates a division between us, because you cannot come to tell me that you are a democratic person, you're dealing with transparency, when all of your actions are showing that it is in conflict with what you're preaching out there.
Now, the question of the audit, if my memory serves me right, the PPP had used that as a means of, taking from the Public Service Union the whole question of, they used to just deduct the agency fees from the union's membership, and just credit that to the union's account and so on. And they use that as a basis for saying, well, look, no audits are being done, and then so we're going to, well, they had their own ulterior motives in relation to that as a means of breaking the union. Yes, we understood that. But that would have happened since around 93, 94.
2001.
2001. Wasn't there enough time to fix that, so that even the Critical Labor College, I think, had that similar kind of problem? So wouldn't there have been enough time to get that fixed, so that they could have put the PPP under some kind of spot to say, okay, you were saying that our books are not audited, let's throw the, see whether your intentions are genuine. We have fixed our books. Here we are presenting our records, our financial records. Restore the agency fees to the union, so that people do not have to come to the unions to pay their dues and to retain their membership. As
Well, let me answer that
you as an
question.
executive member, didn't you fight for that kind of?
Well, at the time I was not on the executive, but
Okay.
but I will tell you this. In all fairness to what was happening at the union there, as you rightfully said, the PPP tried to devise whatever way they can to destabilize the union. So that and several other issues are some of the tactics that was used to take away the agency fee agreement, with the understanding that when they take away the money out of the union will collapse.
Okay.
But what has happened is, while it is that they took that away, and as you rightfully said, Patrick Yard now should have ensured that, well, okay, since these are some of the issues, well, then I'm going to have to make this thing transparent. What Patrick Yard has done is befriended some members of the of the former government. I do not want to call those person names, but I think it is no secret, right, that Patrick Yard has been very close. As a matter of fact, I could tell you this: in 2015, when there was the elections, it was in May, just a little bit before the APNU coalition got into the election, they got into government. It was a May Day celebration on the 4th of May 2015. I gave a speech at the Crutchlow Labour College, and you had you had the leader of the opposition, then David Granger, as well as shadow ministers and so on. And in my remarks, I started off by saying, incumbent President David Granger, and so on and so on. Because I've always been a supporter of this government, and I'll continue to be a supporter of this government. Patrick Yard is not going to put me in a position where he's going to divide me or take me away. I'm not going to allow it to happen. But getting back to the point, let me say that I remember that speech. I talked about how much I believe that David Granger is a working class president, and so on and so on. And then at the end of that speech, I remember when I went back to the union, I remember Patrick Yard telling me that my speech was too political. But yet, he is touting presently that he's a very good friend of this government. Throughout this election, throughout that last election, 2015, Patrick Yard was sitting on the fence. I know of monies that he have collected.
You're alleging that he collected. You know. I mean, okay, all right.
I'm saying on national television, right, that I know of a particular money that was given to him for the purpose of being a scrutineer on the elections. I'm saying this on national television. And I am saying that money was never properly accounted for. Right? And I know of it because I had to know of it because I was part of the decision. Right? I can't say where it come from, but I can tell you that I was a part of the decision. I know of it. So these and a lot of other issues, like for example, the financial statements that Patrick Yard gave to the court for the discharge of the injunction. If you look at that financial statement, you'd recognize that in those financial statements, there are several monies that the union received that are not incorporated in there.
And you were aware of this because you were...
I'm aware of it because I was at the union at that time.
Okay.
For example, the PPP government, just before they demitted office, gave the union a certain amount of money to go for repairs to the complex, the sports complex in Thomasland. And I am telling you that Patrick Yard today have not accounted for that money. He have not accounted for that money to date. So these and a lot of other issues, like for example, even under the PPP, they gave Patrick Yard money for Marshall money. But then when you look in those statements, the money that was received, I have not seen it in the financial statements.
But these will be records at the Ministry of Finance or the agency that would have, they should be a trail, a paper trail in relation to these monies.
Yes.
Either the Ministry of Finance or through the Ministry of
relevant
Culture
agencies,
or
yes.
some agency that would have disbursed them. So the allegations that you're making, they can be somehow verified.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were saying that you were a member of the executive, so you were party to the decisions to accept these monies and so on.
Well, but let me say this. Before 2015, the previous election, being being one of the executive members of the union, when I started to recognize that I was not happy with the decisions that Patrick Yard was making as president, I sought not to run for elections again. So when I was nominated, I declined, and the records will show that I chose not to run again to be a part of the executive council of the Guyana Public Service Union. So the last executive council before this election, I was not a part of it because I recognized that, like I said, this was a dictatorship. So I was not a part of the executive council, but I was a member of staff.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned is that many of the branches of the union are basically dormant.
Yes.
As an activist and as one who is seeking to have the union reinvigorated, to have the membership, new executive installed and all of that, what efforts have you been making to bring these branches back on board so that they can be part of the decision to bring the change that you're seeking?
All right. Very good question. Let me say that the onus is on the union at the head office there to resuscitate branches. Now, the head of that organization is the person who gives the mandate to his staff to execute their duties. No staff cannot arbitrarily decide that this is what I'm going to do by themselves. They have to be mandated. So for me as a member of staff to resuscitate a branch, I would have to get a mandate from my superior to go and do this. I cannot actually go and do this by myself.
But you're not a staff now. Okay.
No, I'm not a staff.
Good.
No.
But you are actively engaged in trying to get the union back on its footing.
Yes.
And part of that would be getting the membership to be actively involved in the affairs of the union.
Yes.
You need no mandate for that. As a mandate that you have to give yourself to get the membership active again, to say, well, look, we need to get the union going. You need to get on board. If you are not financially, regular, then you need to regularize your status in terms of your finances, and let's get the branch, select your shops showed, and actively pursue getting your branch organized so that we can move this process of change
Well,
forward.
Dion, let me answer that question by first saying this. Throughout my entire career, and if you look at it, it has never been blemished in any way. I have never ever broken a rule I've never broken a rule, right? And therefore, I will not break a rule at this stage. The rules says that the union at the head office, at the executive council, they and only them can direct the staff of the union to hold branch elections. Which means that even if I was to go to any branch to tell the members, look, you need to get yourselves together and you need to elect within your membership to set up a branch system, it will be null and void. It will not have any credibility, because for it to have credibility, the union themselves have to actually write them, send them notices, right? And they, based on those notices, then they will do what it is that they have to do. So it's a direct relationship between the union as well as the members there.
Okay, that's a top-down approach. We understand that.
No, but that is what the rules dictate.
The rule, right.
So an ordinary member cannot do that. But those are some of the things that when we get into office, those are some of the things that we will fix.
No, but as people who want representation, why can't activism begin from the bottom so that if the union is not taking that position, then the people at the bottom agitate to have themselves recognized? If they make it public let's say this is a branch of the union, it's been dormant, we want to be active, the union is not making any effort to get us in that vein, we organize ourselves and we go to the union and say, well, look, we want to be recognized as a branch again so that we can begin to participate in the business of the union. Why can't there be that push from the bottom to make the executive respond to the floor of the union?
Well, I see where you're going with that. So basically what you're saying that, look, if Patrick Yard and his executive, they're not doing their job, right? Well, then the members need to take action into their hands and so that they could do something. So I agree with that. As a matter of fact, if you recognize that the Bureau Stats is a wonderful example to exemplify the same issue, where what the union is doing. The union is saying that, well, look, these people at the Bureau Stats, we have they're asking for an audit to be done. Patrick Yard is telling them that no, the union cannot do an audit because we wrote the Auditor General to have an audit, and the Auditor General have not responded, which is a big, humongous lie, right? So what?
The we refers to whom? The executive or the
when Patrick Yard speaks, he should be speaking on behalf of the executive council.
I'm just clarifying whether the we who wrote the
letter
to the Auditor General is the executive or whether it's the Stats Bureau as a body of the...
This is Patrick Yard.
Okay.
Patrick Yard, who is the chairman of the executive council, would write on behalf of the union since he's the chief executive officer. So he what he did is to tell them that he wrote the Auditor General and the Auditor General is not responding. So the staff of the Bureau Stats challenge it and say that, well, since you're asking for an increase in union dues, we will not be giving any increase in union dues until the audit is completed. That is the bottom agitated.
Yeah.
Right? And what has been the response? The response to that is that you are tell them, well, if you want, you could go to the Auditor General yourself. So they did. And the Auditor General made it very clear to them that they have not received any form of letter, request, or anything like that from the Guyana Public Service Union asking for the accounts of the union to be audited. So what you're asking for is a clear example. And you know what he has done to those persons? He sought to make them an associate member. He said that because they're not paying the increase in dues, they will be considered now as an associate member. So in the last election, they could not have voted. This is the level of not just victimization, but this is the kind of beast that you're dealing with.
So what challenges would they have brought legal challenges in relation to these issues that you're talking about?
Well, first of all, let me say this. There's an agreement between a member and the union. When you sign the form saying that this money can now come out of my salary, it's a contractual arrangement that you have with the union. And the contractual agreement, the terms and conditions of that contract is enshrined in the rules. So that the rules governs that relationship.
Yeah, but
So
if they haven't signed, they're saying that they're not going to pay these increases.
Yes.
Did they sign to the agreement that the increases should be deducted?
well, no, they did not. So what they did, they went to they do a petition, all of them signed, and then they wrote their management to say, look, we asked the union to for this information, which are legitimate information in which they have a right to ask the union for. The union isn't providing this information for them, which is the audit, and therefore we are not going to pay the increase. And that is what happened, right? But then who you have is that Yard being the big bad bully, said, well, all right, this I can. As a matter of fact, Patrick Yard actually tell the chairman of the branch that you branch, I see y'all as a little drop in the ocean. So even during the election, one of the things that they've been campaigning and talking about was the fact that we have the same drop in the ocean, we're going to be a tsunami.
Now, okay, we've had issues where unions like the Public Service Union, we had the Guyana Labor Union, we've had issues where unions would have been competing for interest in representing
Yes.
people on different occasions. Is it mandatory that the Stats Bureau be affiliated to the Public Service Union? Is it mandatory that the people at the GGMC be affiliated to the Public Service Union? Is it mandatory? Or can they have representation through some other?
Well, they can. But then there's a process and a procedure that have to be followed. And that procedure is outlined in the Trade Union Recognition Act.
Right.
So the Trade Union Recognition Act basically says that, well, here, for any union to be recognized within a certain agency, they have to have 40 to 45% membership within that organization. So let me look at GGMC, for example. If the union want to be recognized at GGMC, at least 40% of the staff have to sign a form stating that we want to be a member. Now, if there's competing unions, like for example, if there's the Guyana Public Service Union and there's CCWU, both unions want to represent workers there. What will happen is that there will be a poll, and the person
Similar to the ones that the fake poll that
No. Well, this poll.
I know, but you remember the issue with the mines at Bosai? They were saying that they had a poll, and that the workers were not wanting the Guyana Mine Workers Union to represent them and so on.
I'm not sure if it is this.
But I understand what you're saying.
But I know of the issues, but I don't have all the details of that issue. But I will say this: that the person who runs that poll is the Ministry of Labor.
Right, the Chief Labor Officer.
Right. So the Chief Labor Officer and his staff will go there, and then they will run the polls, and with the two competing unions, whichever union acquires the most votes, that will be the recognized union who will govern and will be the recognized union on that side then. So that is the procedure as is. If currently, I think there is the possibility that it could happen, because many persons are tired of this entire situation with Patrick Yard. Many persons do not want to see Patrick Yard. They do not want to have a sight of him, much less um, for him to sit on a panel saying that he represents them. Right? So you have this major resentment between the membership and Patrick Yard. And this is no secret. You go to any one of the agencies in the public service and ask any random staff what they think about the Ghana Public Service Union, headed by Patrick Yard, and you will hear. Ask any random staff at any ministry. So it is out there. And this is, I am not the person who started this. He is the person that is, perhaps they could be blamed for his own downfall. But I want to deal with this objectively. So I don't want to get into the whole personality thing. But I will say this. The major problem that you have at the Ghana Public Service Union is this bullyism kind of way that Patrick Yard is running the union as if he's running his own personal business or his own home. It is in the he does this in the absence of the rule. The rule is there, he applies the rule circumstantially. And these matters will be dealt with in court and will be dealt with timely. So I want to say this to the public out there. A lot of people is perhaps saying, but wait, Patrick Yard just rigged this election and you guys just accept? Absolutely not. That is far from reality. That is far from reality. As a matter of fact, our lawyer has asked us not to disclose certain things. That is why we cannot come on here to say what is our next move or what it is that we're doing. Yeah, so we can't, right? But I guarantee that there's no way that based on what is before the court and what is his defense to some of those things, there's no way that Patrick Yard can win that matter in court. There's absolutely no way.
You're predicating the decision of the...
Yeah, look, I have faith in the judiciary system.
Okay, all right.
I do believe that sometimes they get it wrong. I do believe that.
Okay.
But I believe that the evidence is so overwhelming that I cannot see how he could get out of this one.
All right, so you have challenged the authenticity of the elections, and the matter is before the court. All right?
That matter have not been filed yet. It will be filed shortly.
So what is before the court, actually?
What is before the court? It's the first case in which we had, by which we said that Patrick Yard and the Executive Council is in violation of Rule 13. Okay. Right? The union have not been audited for the past 14 years. The rule says that the union shall be audited each year. So he's in violation of that, and that is the court case that we have. Now, what we're saying is that once that ruling goes in our favor, the union will be run by a IMC. And that management committee will resuscitate all of the branches, get all of the audited up to date, as well as, fix a lot fix the building and so on. There's so much to be done. But get the union on its footing and then run an election once these things have been completed, and then the business of the union continue, because you need someone there.
Okay, but the elections of the last elections, the results were not declared, were they?
No. Well, let me say that that's why I said it defies all logics. The election officer at no time did not brief the press, did not write a letter to the press, did not call all of the members who vie for position in that election, did not meet all of the members at a meeting or anything to say that, well, look, I'm calling this meeting to say that the election has now been concluded and this is the results. The only thing that has happened is that he tried to count the ballots. And by counting the ballots in Georgetown, the the votes went 155 to Patrick Yard, 542 to Gospel. This Georgetown. Right there and then, the election officer, when he recognized that the margin keeps getting wider and wider between Gospel and Patrick Yard, he stopped it. And he said that we cannot continue to count any longer. The staff is tired. We will come back Wednesday, which is 3 days after, 4 days after that day when he's counting. He said, let us come back the next day. He said, we'll come back 3 days after. But the beautiful thing about it is that after counting all of Georgetown, and we recognize what Patrick Yard number was and what our number is, the relevant polls, although they were rigging in the out-of-town areas, the voting was very, 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 very low. And we actually got the numbers. We got the numbers from New Amsterdam, we got the numbers from Linden, from Bartica. Bartica was in our favor. 52 for us, 7 for Patrick Yard. 52 for us, 7 for Patrick Yard. Because in Bartica, we didn't get an opportunity to rig there. But if you look at the numbers coming out of Linden and the numbers coming out of New Amsterdam, there is nowhere, there is no maths in the world in which those amounts could have changed the results of Patrick Yard being elected. There's no way in the world. So what the election officer do is that he just decide that he can just write something and put it on a notice board, and he wrote like a little letter stating that this is the election results, right? And then the so-called results, there it is there on a notice board
Without any numbers and so on.
without any numbers, and on the document that's supposed to have the numbers, he never signed it. So I don't know if the letter that he's talking about, if those are the actual numbers on that sheet, if it applies to that document.
Okay.
Right? So, and then he put it up and he just walk out of the union. So, like I said, that is beyond ridiculous. What election officer does that? Right? So that is the present situation, and while it is ridiculous, the only thing we've done, and we recognize that, because we're decent people, we're not going to go cussing and breaking down, and we're not going to do this. We, as law-abiding citizens, we taking the matter to the court. Now, Yard recognized who he's dealing with. He recognized that these are decent people, and he know that it will go to court. But he recognized that when this matter go to court, just like every other matter, it will be long drawn out while he still continue to be president of the union. I know that that is what he's banking on. But I want to say that he will have a rude awakening. Right? He will have a rude awakening.
Yeah, but justice delayed is justice denied.
I agree, justice delayed is justice denied, but unfortunately, we have to work with the system that we have in Guyana. But I do believe that this one is not going to be a long drawn out one. I am of the firm view that I don't see it happening.
Okay,
And that is premised on the fact that, based on the evidence there, I don't think that any logical thinking judge or magistrate will want to deliberate on this matter for that extended period.
but since the elections, you're claiming that these disputes are there, but in light of all that has happened, we see progress, what I would term progress, being made by Mr. Yard in the face of all the controversy.
Well, I'm not sure what you're calling progress. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
For years, Patrick Yard has always have laid out a big host of plans in terms of what he wants to do.
I'm
to the
talking about
public
his recent
service.
appointment to the Public Service Appellate Tribunal and so on. I mean,
Well, let me say that.
and
Well, you see, he has not been appointed to the Public Service Appellate Tribunal. But what he has is that there is a temporary appointment by the president to to give Patrick Yard an appointment as acting chairman of the Public Service Commission, which is a blatant conflict of interest, because you cannot head a union. And if you're heading the union and workers are coming to you for representation, how in the same way can you then go to the Public Service Commission to say that I'm seeking election, I'm seeking to be promoted or whatever, right? You go to the commission and Patrick Yard deny you. Because I'm sure that many persons who participated in this election, if they go to Patrick Yard at the Public Service Commission and say to him, look,
No, you have to apply, right?
Right, you have to apply, but then you have to be interviewed by him and other members of the board there. So when you go to him as chairman to get a promotion, there's no way that Patrick Yard is going to give you this promotion because he already got an issue with you. But then what do? Can you go to the Public Service Union that he heads now to say that, well, my problem is that I have this problem with the Public Service Commission, I want you to represent me? No, because basically you're going back to the same person who is the hurdle right there. And then to make it even more worse is that what the president has done is swear Patrick Yard in as a member of the Judiciary Service Commission, which means that if you go to the court now, he have influence in that area because he's on the Judiciary Service Commission, right? So I want to believe that it was a major blunder by our president. But I want to make it very clear, I am a firm supporter and I believe in this government, right? But I believe that is a terrible decision, and I hope that the president will revisit that decision because it smacks in the face of integrity, transparency, and accountability.
Yeah, but the Public Service Commission, recently the Guyana Teachers Union had a matter before the court with the Teaching Service Commission in relation to the way they were doing the appointments and so on. There's a point system that usually would be applied, but the commission made appointments based upon, what people said about the candidates and the, personal feelings. And so they challenged it and they were able to have a lot of the appointments
rescinded.
Right. And the people who should have been appointed subsequent to, those years that they should have. And it's basically retroactive. But I'm saying that because representation from the union on that commission is not in the position of the chairman or any such thing. The union is there to guard the interest of the workers. So I'm trying to figure out how it is that, with this Public Service Commission, you have a union executive being in charge. How does it work?
Well, let me say that is a beautiful example. That is a wonderful example with the teachers' service, with the teachers, with the GTU and the commission. The GTU, the president and his executive are the persons empowered to grant, as you rightfully said, protect the interests of the workers. And they're the person who took the matter to court. Right? Against the Public Service Commission. Now, look at it on the other side of the fence. Do you think that Patrick Yard will take the commission to court when he is chairman of the commission?
I don't know.
That is a clear example of what I'm talking about, right? And I don't know, the blindest person out there could see that this is a major violation of democracy. It smacks in the face of integrity. It is everything that is bad. It is everything that is bad for good governance.
And for workers'
and
rights.
For workers, exactly. Because I consider this government to be a working class government. So as a working class government, you're going to have to make decisions that are working class decisions. Quite often I always say to people, the government of the day, the government determines the industrial relations climate in which we operate. So if you have a working class government, you're going to have working class policy. If you have an anti-working class government, you're going to have anti-working class policy. So those are some of the issues that I hope that the president will look deeply at, because it makes no sense, and it does not reflect well for the government, because you got thousands of public servants out there who are looking on and who are watching at this, and they're looking at you as they're looking at you, Mr. President. They're looking at your cabinet and how it is that you could make such a decision. And mind you, I do not want to be critical of this government, because, like I said, I am a supporter of this government and I will continue to support it. I've said that, so I'm repeating myself. But I do believe that this was a very bad decision.
All right, Jermaine. Thank you for being on the program. Time has caught up with us. We can continue to deliberate on the issues, and you're free to come back again whenever you have issues that you want to discuss in relation to workers' rights and the union that you represent. I want to remind the viewers out there about the Pan-African Movement's Day of the African Child concert, which will be held on the 18th of June at the Queen's College Auditorium. The MC will be Basil Bradshaw, and you have a host of artists who will be there performing to make you really have a good afternoon out. It's on a Sunday afternoon, so do remember that date and gear for it. And if you want to have more information, you can get in touch with Professor Joycelyn Monk or any member of the Pan-African Movement. It's been a pleasure being with you once again on this program, and I look forward to being with you next week, same time, same channel, for another program of Walter Rodney Groundlings. Do have a good night.
From the bottomless pit, but my